This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, so I think by default, please stay on mute if you don't have any questions. If you have any questions, you can ask. Okay. Yesterday, we discussed about the conditional statements. Okay, so based on the conditions we control, so we want to execute some set of statements or not. Okay, using this conditional statements, mostly we use this if condition. Okay, if we have if else, if nested if, all those flowers are there. Okay, now today we are going to understand the same statement if you want to execute multiple times. Let's say I want to execute the same statement 100 times, right? So when you have such kind of scenarios, so that time we use the looping statements, looping or controlling statements. Okay, so we have different types of loops. There are different flavors of loops. The way how the iteration happens, there is a different procedure. So for that we have different types of loops. Okay, so one of the type is while loop. Okay, and the other one is do while loop. Okay, and the other one is for. Okay, in for loop again there are two flavors. We say index based for loop, and we also say for each loop. Okay, we are going to understand the syntax, how we use while loop, do while loop, for loop, and all those things. So once we know the basics, automatically based on the requirement, we get idea which is suitable as per the requirement. Okay, mostly we use for loop, which is very easy, and most of the times on day to day, you see blindly using for loop. If there is some exceptional scenario, if you feel while loop is better, we also use while loop. It's all based on requirement and how, as a developer, we think. Okay, as soon as we have the knowledge on how we write the loop, right? We should know the syntax. Then we can play with whatever you want. Okay, first let's understand about while loop, and after that the other types of loops. The syntax to write the loop. Okay, so first initialization. People say loop variable initialization. Initialization. Okay, so after that we say while. Here we give the condition, right? Only if the condition is satisfied, it enters inside the loop, and we execute some set of statements, right? So some statements, so whatever, all those statements we execute. And also main thing, increment or decrement, right? So when you have a loop variable, let's say you want to iterate 100 times, initially the value is 1. You want to increment, and until 100 times you want to execute. If you don't increment, always the condition will be satisfied and the loop will try to execute infinite times. Infinite times there is no ending, right? Infinite times is not acceptable. We'll see some exception. Those kind of exception we call as governor limit exceptions. Again, exception means the error which we see at runtime. Runtime means at the time of executing the code. And the code started executing, that time whatever error we see, those we call as exceptions. At the time of saving the program, whatever error we see, we call that as compilation error. Anyway, we see all those things. Okay, so just we should have this increment and decrement. This is the syntax. So let's see in reality how we write. So for that, okay, so all of you, I believe you have the developer edition account. you need to click on this gear icon. You can click on developer console. If you click on developer console, it opens in a new tab. I mean, new window. If you don't want a new window, hold control and click on this developer console. It opens in the new tab in the same Chrome browser. Okay, so here all we need to do, click on debug, open, execute anonymous window, and here we write the logic. Okay, so here let's say I want the loop to execute 10 times. Okay, let's see how we write the logic. Initialization, right? The loop variable. So we say loop variable, most of the times it will be integer, counting 1, 2, 3. We need integer. So in general, on day to day, when you deal with the loops, the loop variables as a standard, we use I, J, K like that. Okay, in general, in our mind, immediately we get I. I means people understand, okay, this is a loop variable. Okay, inside the one loop, if there is one more loop, again, you need one more variable to hold the count. We use J, K, L. If you have many inner loops, we start from I and we follow like that. It is not 100% mandatory, right? People follow the standards. We also follow that. If you don't want as I, you want something else like a count, it's up to you. Okay. So, but I am giving I. Okay. And in general, loop variable, you see on day to day, people start with 0. One of the reason is going forward, we deal with one of the concept called collection. Collection means multiple values. When there is a collection, when there are multiple values, the collection will be having some index to identify. The index starts from 0. So that's why mostly you see people starting the loop variable as 0. It's up to you, right? If there is no requirement to start from 0, you can give 1, you can give 10 or whatever you want. Okay. So I'm giving 0. From 0 to 9. Total 10 times the loop should be executed. Okay, so here while, right, as per the syntax, here we give while, and I told, so here we give condition. Here the condition is until I value is less than 10, loop it. That's the meaning. Once I becomes 10, it won't enter and it stop the loop. Okay. Now, if you don't use increment or something and execute, now what will happen? You see, maybe until 1 minute, it is keep on executing. It is like infinite. We did not increment that value. Always I value is 0, 0 less than 10. That condition will be never spoiled. System will keep on trying to execute infinite times. And you see after some point of time, system will throw error saying CPU time limit exceeded, right? So because keep on infinite times, it is trying to execute. I think until 1 minute, I think we waited, right? So these kind of things will happen. Okay, make sure to use increment or decrement. Otherwise, it's a big problem. Okay, so here we need to increment this value every time by 1. How we give? So we can give I is equal to I plus 1, but yesterday we discussed unary operator. If we use a I plus plus, this value will be incremented by 1 every time, right? Now this will end after some point of time. Let's say for us in the debug log to see some output, I'm printing the number, right? So I'll say system dot debug, and I'm printing that I value. First time I is 0, 0 less than 10, it will print 0 and increment by 1. 1 less than 10, again it will print 1, increment by again 1, 2, 2 less than 10, like that. In output, you see 0 to 9. Okay, once I becomes 10, it will fail and it won't print. Okay, 0 to 9, total 10 values we have to see. So once we execute, see here you are seeing from 0 to 9. So that is about the while loop. Okay, just a simple syntax. Okay, just copy.
I have one doubt.
Yeah.
I
Any
mean,
questions?
can you go to console once?
Yeah.
Yeah, here we wrote a system.debug in the second statement, right? After while, what if we write after I plus plus?
So you will see 1 to 10. Okay. If you print this one after I plus plus, so what will happen? First 0 less than 10, it enters. It will increment by 1. Now it will print 1. Again 2. Right? Let's say I is 9. 9 less than 10. It will enter inside and increment by 10. It will print 10. Right? But next time 10 less than 10 fails. In the output, you will be seeing 1 to 10. That's what will happen. Okay. Execute. Click on debug only. And you see 1 to 10, right? So like that. Okay. So just understand about that. Okay. You can play with these things. Okay. So just to get to know the syntax. The other things, as per your ideas, you can play and do whatever you want. Okay. Now the next thing, do while loop. Okay. How we use the do while loop? Let's see. So only the syntax wise, only the difference is this part. In this part we give do. In this part here we use while. Only that's the difference. Okay. And also I want this to maybe keep here. Now the advantage with the do while is irrespective of the condition, whether the condition is satisfied or not satisfied, it execute all the statements at least one time. That's the purpose of the do while. Now as it is, if I execute, you don't see any difference. You see 0 to 9, it will be printing. Let's execute and see. I'm executing. Now also you see the result as 0 to 9, right? So now when we see the difference, I'm giving I value as 100. 100 less than 10, right? What will happen even though 100 is less than, sorry, 100 is not less than 10. Okay, so even though it is not less than 10, it execute all these statements one time. You see in the result, it will be printing 100. Later, it won't iterate. Okay, execute and see. Execute and see. You are seeing 100. Okay, so one time, all the statements are guaranteed to execute. Okay, so that is do while. Okay, maybe. So what I will show you now. Let's go back to the while loop, however we have. Okay, here I'm giving 100. Do you think it will print? No, it will never enter. 100 less than 10. You don't see anything. Okay, but if you take do while, it will enter one side. It will enter one time inside to that, and it will print that. Right. So that's the difference. So when you have a situation to execute all statements one time and later you want to check, you can try with the do while loop. Okay, that's the syntax of that. The next one is for loop. In that we have index based for loop. First we discuss about this one. Okay, how it works. So here for inside that some statements So here only the condition, here only the condition, here only the initialization, right? Initialize. Here only the condition, here only increment or decrement, everything. This is the syntax. Okay. So let's see how it works. Take integer I equal to 0 for. So no need to really define this outside, right? Initialization is also along with the loop variable. Here only we say integer I equal to 0. It's like one statement, right? So I less than I want 10 times to execute, I less than 10. This is a condition. I plus plus. All the statements here in the same line we're writing and keeping inside this. Okay. So now here again I'm using system.debug and the printing. This will also give the result 0 to 9. So how it will work? Okay, so maybe so first it will execute this. Okay, only one time. Okay, so and after that I equal to 0, and later it will check for the condition 0 less than 10. Yes, it will enter inside and it execute this part. Later it will increment this value. Now I value will become 1. Later again it will check for this condition 1 less than 10. Yes, again it enter and execute this, and again it will increment. So again it will check 2 less than 10, 7 less than 10. Once this becomes 10, 10 less than 10, it will fail. So this part will keep on, it will iterate and execute this part. This first part will execute only one time. Okay, that is what this will work. Okay, so most of the times we use this for loop, index based for loop. Okay.
So one small doubt.
Yeah.
So what is the difference between do loop and for loop? Because in do loop we have mentioned it separately, but in for loop you're mentioning it everything in one only, no? So what is the difference between the previous one and the current one?
So do while, are you talking about do while or while?
Yeah, do you have done and while also you have done. I understood both. And now you're doing this for loop, right? Where you have done it separately and keeping all in one same single line, right?
Yes.
So,
yeah,
if you can just
syntax.
for loop once.
There is a difference with the syntax. Okay.
Yeah. So how will we know what difference to be used?
Yeah. So while loop, not only I less than 10 like that. Okay. So here mostly. So what we do, we also check a particular value. Let's say if there is a string, we can also compare the string, and if that string value is available, then only you want to enter inside. So those kind of few things we can deal with while when compared to the for loop. Okay, so when we see the actual example, you will understand. So that's what I'm saying. So both gives the same result in most of the situations. Okay, really when we have the solid requirement, that time you will understand why we need to use while and for. Okay, until we take requirements, you need to wait for that. Okay.
Okay, definitely. Thank you. Got it.
Okay, both gives the same result. The way how we write is different. Okay, syntax wise. Mostly blindly we use this index based for loop most of the times, because which is easy when compared to while. right? Again, while we have to write here and write here and write here, only one line we keep everything, and it is very easy to maintain. Okay, so we use this. And the next thing, for each loop. Okay, so what is this
Hello,
for each
sir.
loop? Hello, yeah.
Hello. Sir,
Yes,
what
yes.
if we put a plus plus in front of I? Hello.
So yeah, you keep
Hello.
plus plus.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, I understood your question. You are saying that you are going to keep plus plus before I, right? So those kind of things, I want you to play with those by executing, okay, in the system.debug. Okay, so mostly it will give the same value. There will be a slight difference. Really, when you have requirement, that time we can deal with that. Okay, so since we have that question in our mind, all you need to do, right, just keep it and play with that and see what will happen. Okay, so now mostly you see the same result, right? There will be some situations when it works in a different way, that we'll see when we really take the requirements. Okay, for now, just to get to know the syntax and look. Okay, 99% we only use this, right? So I never use a plus plus I. Okay, when I write the code, but there is a option to write like that. So you can play with that really if you want. Okay, so just don't bother about those kind of things. First, focus on what we do on day to day and get to know the syntax. It is useless to learn something which we don't use most of the times unless you are preparing for some certification or something else, because we need to learn many things to deal on day to day. Okay, so the next thing what I am trying to explain is about the for each loop. So mostly when we use this for each loop, going forward we discuss about one of the topic called collections. Okay, so far whatever we discussed about this memory statements, right? Integer, string, all those things. So if I define integer, how many values we can store? If I say integer number, how many numbers I can store? Only one. Only one number I can store. I want to store multiple numbers. I have 100 numbers and store in one place everything. Okay. So there is a topic called collections. There are different types of collections: list, set, map. When we deal with that, you'll get to know more about that. For now, here I'm taking some freedom to define and show you. Okay, but for now, you don't need to bother about this syntax. Okay, so I want to hold multiple numbers and just defining a list for now. So no need to worry about the syntax, whatever I'm writing. Okay, just assume that. So we have a collection with some numbers, whatever. Okay, and we are going to iterate over this collection. So this is also a variable. This variable is having 4 numbers inside that. More about the syntax when we discuss about collections topic, you'll know. Okay, so for now, when we have this, how we get each and every element of that one. Okay, so for this collection, if you want to know the size, so I'm taking this. So I'll say this collection, what is the type? Here we mention, right? Let's say if you want to keep all text values, we use string. If you want to store all Boolean values, we say Boolean, like that, right? So now this collection type is integer. Left side we use the type integer. Here some variable name. whatever you want, you can give as a developer, right? I am giving as number colon the collection name. Here, this collection which is having these 4 values. Left side, what is this type? Integer. This one, any variable name, whatever you want, you can give. Now, what will happen when it started iterating? First time, this number value is 100. Second time, the number value is 300. Third time, 400. Fourth time, 250. After that, there are no elements. It will stop automatically. So like that, it will work. So when we write like this kind of loop we call as for each loop. But we don't think that we use something like for each, right? That is wrong. Okay. So while calling, we say for each loop. But in the actual syntax, you don't see that each. Okay. So here, just all I'm doing, I'm printing that number. Okay. Now we'll be seeing it is printing 100, 300, 400, and 250. Okay. So click on execute. Click on debug only. Now you see 100, 300, all these things it is printing. This is the way. Okay. This is the example of the for each loop. Okay. Here I'm keeping for your reference. About this, we'll see going forward. No need to bother now. Okay. So that's about the loops.
The colon for what reason we are using like normally?
So colon is just to separate between this list and this. Okay. So this is the list. So the syntax, right? So you should not ask why we are keeping semicolon, right? So that's the syntax. Okay. Always when you deal with the for each, this is how they are asking to maintain. Okay. We have to maintain like that. Okay. Why they are using colon, not something else? So that's up to the other programming language. If someone invents other programming language, they'll keep whatever they want. So basically, it is to separate this list and this left-hand side part to say what is this. Okay. So just yeah, understand that. So now, so we are done with this. Any questions so far? Sorry.
Even the num list will be having the same elements.
Yeah, same elements. That's what we are iterating, right? This num list, whatever elements, whatever values are there, that's what I'm iterating. Do you want to alter that? You can alter, right? So let's say for each number, I want to add 10. You can add, and you can do whatever calculation you want, and it will work as per that. Okay. So those things, when we take the requirements, we'll understand. For now, focus on the syntax. Okay. The next thing, what we need to know about this input and output statements. This we cannot discuss now, because these things we use when we deal with the UI development, right? When we have the web page, from the UI, when you are interacting with the business logic. Okay. So business logic is Apex, right? The Apex code, whatever we write. From UI, when you click on a button, you need to execute some Apex code, right? That time, so when you have some of the variables defined in this Apex code, you want to show the variable value on the UI or not. Okay, so if you want allow to show, we use get property. For now, just understand get means output. Okay, to allow showing our variable value on the UI, we use get. Do you want to accept some value as the input from the UI? Let's say there is a form, I am filling the value. Whatever I enter in the form input, that should store in one of the variable what we define in the Apex. If you want to allow like that, we use set property. Okay, so that more about that only when we deal with that UI will be knowing. For now, just keep in mind, get means we use most of the times for output. Set means it allows to provide the input. As a developer, just keep that in mind. That's it. Okay. So now if you see, so these are the different statements on day to day. When you see most of the programs, you see all these statements in the programs. Okay. Now what I'll do, I'll show you some of the programs and see we are able to identify what kind of statement, why they are writing those or not. Okay. So for that, I am opening one of my website. So click on interview questions. So here I have some sample programs. Okay. So I'm going to open some programs and show you whatever so far we know, with that we are able to recognize or not. Okay. I'm opening this one. For now, don't bother about this structure. Our next topic is how we write that, right? What we need to know to write those kind of things. Okay. So for now, see the statements inside that. Okay. So if you see this one, so what is the purpose of this statement? It is to allocate the memory. Right? So data type, string type, and the name of the memory is this one we call as variable. As a default value, this value is assigned. Right? So whenever you want to write a text, we have to write in the single quote. Right? This is to hold the data, right? To allocate the memory. This is also same thing, right? Integer. This time different data type to hold the integer values. So there are two variables and having default value 0, 1, and this one 0. Now this one, what is this? It's a loop, right? For loop, index based for loop. I equal to 0, I less than number. Number can be anything. Maybe the user will supply 10 or 100 or 500. Those many times it will iterate. Now what is this? Assigning value from right side to left side, and here they are using arithmetic operators, right? And here again assigning. Here also they are assigning. What is this? Arithmetic assignment, right? So the meaning of this one is Fibonacci series is equal to Fibonacci series plus this comma plus this next expression, right? So this, if you know what we discussed, you can understand this, right? So mostly, so like that you see, okay? And also I'm showing one more program. Now if you see, this is again to allocate the memory. This is conditional statement, right? If equal to relational operator, right? Checking for equality. Logical operator, or if any one of the condition is satisfied, it will enter inside and execute this one. Okay, so just here conditional statements are used, right? So like that. Okay, so when you see the programs, you'll be knowing, right? This is system.debug to print in the log. Okay, so now we know, we don't know how to write the program, but we know what are the different statements and how we can write those statements. Now the next thing, how we keep all those statements together as one unit and call that and execute whenever you want. So that's what we need to know. Okay, so the next concept after knowing these basics, to give the program structure for all these statements, so we should know about the concept called OOPS concepts. Okay, object oriented programming concepts, like C++ and Java, .NET, all those languages supports object oriented programming concepts. Apex is also the language which supports the object oriented programming concepts. Okay, so we say OOPS concepts, object oriented programming concepts. Okay, so let's understand these concepts so that you will know how we start the program, inside the program what we write, all those things you'll be knowing. Okay, I'll list out the concepts. Okay, the first one is encapsulation. Encapsulation, that's the first type. The next one is abstraction. The next one is polymorphism. Okay, next one, inheritance. Okay, without this knowing these things also, people write programs. Okay, but once you know how to write without remembering these things, you can write. But if you know from basics, you can think even better way. Right? In a better way, you can become as a better programmer when compared to other person. Okay, so the encapsulation, what is this? So before we understand this one, so what I want to explain. So what is the purpose of writing any program? When we say program will be having the set of statements, right? So why we need to write the program? So when you take any program, let's say this is a program. In program, mostly, so what information we keep? Mostly the program will hold some data, whatever we give, or after calculating some, applying some calculation to hold the resultant data, it needs some memory, right? Mostly when you take a program, you see we define the variables to hold the memory, maybe the input data or output data to hold. Along with that, the next key element, which action you want to do. For example, I am supplying two numbers to program. Okay, we will be having two variables to hold the two number values, whatever we supply. With those two numbers, what you want to do? You want to add or subtract or multiply? Or let's say I'm supplying height and weight, and I want BMI, body mass index. So what calculation you want? That logic we need to write, right? So which action you want to do? Addition or subtraction, or you want the BMI or whatever you want. So those actions, okay, we do some actions. Examples, add, subtract, like that. Okay. So these actions technically in the object-oriented programming concepts we call as methods. Okay, action means method. Okay, method in OOPS-based concepts we call method. Method will be having some set of statements, and the method logic can reuse again and again. Let's say you have 10 statements written in one of the method with the name add. You can call that 100 times or 200 times, or how many times you want, you can call and keep on reuse the logic. For that we write the method. Method is like it is a specific action. Okay, so mostly, okay, so this we call as data. Technically data will be holded through variables. So these are the major elements in a program you see. Okay, there are many more with some other concepts. Slowly we'll know about those things. Okay, these are the major things in a program you see. So all these are the elements in a program. Okay, now with that knowledge, so encapsulation. So what is the definition? What is the meaning of the encapsulation? Okay, let's understand. It binds the elements in a program together. That we call as encapsulation, right? So let's say you have data and variables. It keep all those things as one single unit, right? It binds the elements in a program together as single unit. That we call as encapsulation. Okay, that's a technical thing. How it will bind? So how it will wrap? Okay, so to bind it, as part of the encapsulation, we use two things: class, and also we have interface. Okay, so how you hold the elements in a program together? Either using class, you can keep that together, or by using interface, you can keep that together. Okay, when we write that, you will understand. Okay, so, and also on day-to-day example, if you want to understand, let's say we have TV. Let's say TV. So TV will be internally, if you open the TV, you see there are many different elements. Everything they combine and they keep as one unit. The top panel, whatever is there, that it will make the entire internal things holding into one unit, right? So here encapsulation means it's like that. We have many elements. We wrap all those elements into one unit using this either class or interface using encapsulation. Okay. So now in this encapsulation, what is class? That's the first thing we should know, right? What is class? Okay, so when you see some definitions and on day-to-day, people say it is a plan. It is a blueprint of the real world situation. Okay, I'll say it is a plan. Okay, for example, the day-to-day. So let's say there is a building. Let's say there is a plan to construct one building. What is the first thing we need? We need plan, right? No one will start constructing the building without plan, right? First, we need the plan. By following the plan, the building will be constructed, right? Here, class is also a plan, right? Class is a plan. When you write class, nothing will happen, right? So if you are writing the class means you are planning for something. Okay, so what you want? When you say building, which building you want? You want a duplex building, or you want only one floor or 5 floors? Each floor, how many? So 2 BHK you want or 3 BHK you want? So based on the requirements, we plan, right? So the engineers will write the plan. Maybe engineers will draw the plan, and by seeing that, the building will be constructed. In the same way, here when you write the class, the meaning is we are planning to do something. Okay, so what you want to plan, it's all based on the requirement. Okay, so like that we have to understand. So now, so once we have the class, I'm saying nothing will happen. Once we have the plan on the paper, do we have the real building? No, right? So if you use some material and construct, then only the real building will be constructed. In the same way, once we have the class, we have to create the object, right? We have to create the object. So here this class is like a building plan on the paper, right? So this object is like the physical building, whatever after constructing the building is there, that one. Okay, so once we have the building, automatically nothing will happen, right? Someone will go and use the building, right? If you don't instruct anything, nothing will happen, right? So if you want to open the door, we need to instruct and open the door. If you want to operate the lift, you need to operate. You need to press a button, it will stop, and you can operate and you can use that, right? Until you don't use, nothing will happen. In the same way, we plan, we write the class, we create the object. With that object, we need to do something. when you have building, you have to do something for building, then only it will operate and you'll use that, right? In the same way, we create the object and we mention which action you want to do, right? You want to so open the door, or you want to close the door, or all those kind of things, okay? And also in the building, there is no lift. There is no lift, you cannot use, right? Whatever the facility is there, only that we use. In the same way, when you plan the class, what are the actions you developed? Only those things we do. If something is not there, we cannot do anything, right? It's like that. So exactly on real world, what we do, those things we automate by writing the program, by following this kind of class and object terminology, okay? So let's take one more example. So let's say bank, right? If you want to deposit some amount in the bank in a manual way, we need to visit the bank. We need to give the cash to the employee who is working in the bank. And it's a lot of manual process, right? In olden days, if you want to withdraw, also same thing. We go to bank and they'll do something, write something, and they'll give the money. Nowadays, everything is automated, right? You can go to ATM center. You can keep your cash as input. Automatically, there is a device which will scan the cash and identify how much amount you input, and automatically that amount will be added to your bank account, right? So internally there is a program, right? There is a logic by using that hardware, and behind that hardware by writing this program that is achieved, right? So we automated that process. Nowadays, mostly we go to ATM and withdraw or also deposit, everything we do automatically. So like that, many things will be automated, right? So instead of writing manually, so everything can be automated by following these kind of class and object and the real world things, okay? So that's it. And now when we so take one example and write, you will get more idea. I think almost we are ready to write a program. So before we start writing a program, okay, we also need to know about this abstraction, okay? So abstraction means it deals with the visibility of the elements in a program. It deals with the visibility of the elements in a program. That is abstraction. Let's say there is a building. In building, few things should not be visible to outside, right? So only whatever you want to show outside, only that will be constructed without any wall and something, right? So always, and also let's take TV example, right? When you take TV, right? Inside that, whatever the motherboard is there, whatever board is there, all those things, we don't bother about that. All we need to have, it should display the image on the screen. That's what we want. We don't want other things to visible, right? And also along with the screen, whatever we watch on the TV, I want to keep some pen drive, or I want to connect my laptop to TV. So to insert that cable, we want some option to see outside, right? So the thing is, whatever we need, so that will be exposed. Whatever we don't need, that will be hidden, right? I don't bother about the motherboard inside TV, how it is, and so what is happening, right? What we need outside for our use, only those things will be displayed. The remaining things will be hidden. So that control we do using the abstraction. We decide which kind of visibility you want to provide for the element. Okay, so just understand that. Okay, so now here there are different levels of hiding. Okay, so one is we have different access modifiers. Technically, these things we call as access, which control the visibility of. So, okay, the next
Srini, your
one
voice
is
is breaking.
protected. So, is it breaking for everyone? Is my voice is breaking for everyone?
Now it's clear.
Yes.
It's okay now.
Yes, now
Clear.
it is working.
Oh, okay, yeah. So just let me know if it is breaking. So now here, what I'm trying to show you. Control the visibility of the elements program. We have steps which will control the accessibility. Private, protected, and these are the access modifiers. Okay.
Srini, again, your voice is breaking, Srini. Completely, it's breaking completely. Not able to hear you at all. Srini, are you there? Srini, we are not able to hear you.
Hello, are you able to hear me now?
Yes, now we are able to hear you.
Yes.
I think you have to start from access modifier again.
Is it okay? Okay, so now
Yes.
I believe it is clear. Now this abstraction, right? The purpose of the abstraction is it controls the visibility of the elements in a program. Okay, so already I think I gave one example. If you take TV, in TV, what we want to see, only that is exposed outside. We want to see the image so that the image panel will be displayed outside. I want to keep my pen drive or some cable I want to connect. Those things you see outside, right? The other things will be hidden, which we don't bother about seeing those. For example, motherboard and all those things. Okay. So in the same way, here using this abstraction concept, we can control the visibility of the elements in a program. So we have different access modifiers to control the visibility of the elements in a program: private, protected, public, and global. So private means maybe on day-to-day. Let's take one example. Let's say there is a gated community. Okay, there are many apartments. There is a lot of common area. In apartment, let's say we have a flat. There is a flat. Okay, let's say there is a 3 BHK flat, and let's say we are staying in. Okay, so there is a flat, and you have the flat. So when you have like that, so in that, what is the private area? Okay, so private area is in that 3 BHK house, the bedrooms are the private places, right? Even when some friends comes, some visitors comes, they can stay in hall, but mostly they should not enter into bedrooms. So it's like a private area. That is such kind of visibility, the private. Protected means the relatives, the friends, whoever related to you, right? Some visitors who visit your house, they can come inside the house, they can sit in hall and use that common areas, right? I mean, it house as a visitor, whatever they can access, that they can sit and they can use, right? That is protected. Okay, only friends and relatives and those guys can enter inside and use. Okay. Public means we have the common areas. Let's say play area, gym, walking track, or some areas, right? So all those who are in the gated community, they can go and play. They can go and do the gym, all those things. But outsiders cannot do, right? Outsider cannot come and do the gym. Only that facility is for the families, the people who are part of that gated community. That is public, right? So global means, let's say in that gated community, there is a shopping mall. Even anyone can come and buy something, even outside the gated community. Okay, there is a shopping mall, anyone, including the members of the gated community, even outside people also, they can come and buy. That is global, not only that community. Outside that gated community, the outside people also, they can come and access. So that is global visibility. Here, the gated community is like a Salesforce organization. Our Salesforce organization is like gated community. Within the Salesforce organization, from any class to any class, whatever we write going forward, the accessibility will be there if you use public, right? Global means, let's say there is a requirement to access in Salesforce, whatever the program we write, that program we need to expose to the one of the external platform like Java. Let's say there is an integration from Java. They want to read our code and access the result of our code. Okay, in those kind of situations, to expose our logic to the external platform applications outside the Salesforce organization, we give the visibility as global. Okay, so these are some of the access modifiers. Day to day, with some examples, we will get even more clear picture. Okay, so with this information, we are ready to create the one of the classes. Okay, first we start with the class. Slowly, we will also see what is that interface. What is the difference between class and interface? We will see all those things. Okay, so for example, I mean, for everything there is a difference, right? So class is like, say, there is a independent house you purchased, right? So they give the plot area, land area, and also building ready to occupy. You can enter and use everything. Like that, class is having everything. Interface is not still it's not really developed fully. Let's say you purchased a land plot. They provided all facilities, drainage area and everything, but building is not there. We need to construct, right? So it's like interface. So there is a plot, and whatever on top of that you like, you can develop and construct the building. So it's like that. Okay, so try to relate with the real world examples and understand so that you'll easily remember the differences. Okay, so now let's create a class and see how it works. Okay, so to create the class, once we log into Salesforce, okay, I believe we have the developer edition account. Once we log into Salesforce, there are different places, right? There are different places where we create the class, right? It is like this. Let's say we need to construct a building. So you want to give that building construction for a company so that you pay to that company and the company will take care of completing the building construction and they give that building. That is one way, right? Let's say you don't want to give to any other company. By your own, you talk to the labor and you only sit there and if you construct, ultimately at the end of the day, building is there. How it is constructed? There are different ways. In the same way, we have the class. It can be created from different places. Okay, so one place is, once you go to setup, left side, search for Apex classes, right? Click on setup, left side, search for Apex classes and click on new, right? This is one way how we create the class. There is other way also, right? So the other way is click on this gear icon, go to developer console. Already we opened this one. Here you see file and new and class. This is also going to create a class. At the end of the day, everything is same, right? The place where we are creating is different. Ultimately, once it is created, so it will be there in that place. So even once, if I create from here, if you go back here and if you see here also it will be there, right? The place where we create is the difference. So once we create, it's up to you. You want to go here and see, or you want to go here and see, it's up to you. Okay. So like that. So this is one place. First, I start from here because we should know in all places how we deal with that. After a few examples, we'll go with this and we use this. And slowly, so as a developer, if you are spending more time on doing the development, people like automatically suggesting the syntax and do it easily, right? So there are some tools. There is a tool called VS Code, Visual Studio Code. I'll also show you how we install the tool, how we connect this tool to Salesforce organization, and do the development from here and deploy those changes to here. Okay, so that we also see. Okay, so different ways, but at the end of the day, once you create, everything will be same, right? So it's like, let's say nowadays, this is like an external tool, right? Let's say constructing a building. So let's say the building door, they'll construct somewhere and they'll bring and fit, right? It's like this VS Code. This is not at all related to Salesforce. Right? This is a third-party tool. Here we develop and it will store in our local system. Once it is ready, deploy to this org. Like the door is somewhere manufactured and they're getting and fixing to that, right? So like this, it will enter into our org and we can make use of that. So it's like that. So just understand, since we don't have time, tomorrow we'll create a program and see how exactly it will work. Okay. So with today, so we are done with our demo sessions. From tomorrow, if you are interested, so you can, so I'll drop one email tomorrow morning, check your email and you have to pay the fee so that you will get the updated meeting link. So anything, if you want to discuss, you can ping in WhatsApp and I will proceed further. Okay. So that's it. And any questions before ending today? Any questions?
I have a question. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So as you already explained that Apex follows almost all the concepts of OOPS. Okay, sir. But it also provides support to primitive data types. So my question is Apex considered to be pure object-oriented language?
So yeah, it is object-oriented programming language. So there is a primitive data type, but what is your question here? It can have primitive data type, right?
Yeah. It provides support to primitive data types. That's what my question is. But if you see the definition of pure object-oriented language, then it shouldn't provide any support to primitive data types for a pure object-oriented language.
Who told?
Yeah.
So did you read somewhere? Or?
Yes.
So even if you, even if you take Java or if you take any language,
that's not true. Java is not considered. That's why for sometimes we say Java is not pure object-oriented language, because it also provides support to this. It
Yeah,
no doubt it
this
follows.
Apex is also like that only. Okay. So as
Okay.
per your understanding, if you say Java is not a purely object-oriented programming
Yes, exactly.
platform, Apex
Yeah.
is also same.
Yeah,
Okay.
actually,
At
sir,
the
I
end
was
of the
also,
day, at the
yeah,
end
yeah,
of
actually,
the day,
sir,
what will happen, right? All our
right.
Apex code will be converted into Java and it will run on the JVM. That's what will happen
Right.
internally. Okay. That's the internal architecture. For us,
Yes, sir. I was asked,
Salesforce say,
actually, sir, I was asked this in one of the interviews that is Java considered to be purely object-oriented language? That's why I told you the question.
yeah, I understood. Maybe if you are attending interview with Java, they might ask because they have the scope only asking questions on the Java. But when you deal with Salesforce, there are many things. Yeah,
Right.
so we least bother about those things. Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
Anyway,
sir, okay.
right? It is similar to Java. At the end of the day, all our Apex code will be converted into Java and it runs on the JVM. Okay. That's the internal
Okay, thank you,
architecture.
sir.
But that
Thank you, sir.
Salesforce won't explain anywhere. Okay. So we need to bother about the syntax of Apex and how it executes. Okay. It's like that. Okay.
Thanks, sir.
So any other questions before ending today?
Srinu, one small doubt.
Yeah.
This is regarding to the developer account creation. So as I already have the admin account, can I use the same username password for the developer account, or should I create a new username password?
So did you attend administration training?
Yes, I did it.
Right. So for
Yes.
administration training also, whatever the account we created, that is developer edition account only, right? When you
So,
registered, you went to this
mm,
website developer edition and registered, right?
yes, yes.
I'm talking about the same thing. Already you have this account and you can log in and you can continue doing the development. Okay, the same account.
But I'm trying to do the same. It says like invalid username and password. That's the reason I asked you. Should I create a new account again?
No,
Not required.
same account
Not
you can use.
Okay.
You might maybe forget your password or something. Cross check your emails and in the same account you can log in and do the development. Okay.
Okay then. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions? Anyone?
So I once told you that I'm not able to, at times I'm not able to log into Salesforce account because it shows me some that you're logging in. I don't know the
Okay.
error.
Now we were
I
able
told
to
you
log in.
about that. Yeah, I'm able to log in, but then I went to my profiles and I checked all the these profile settings. I have not put any login hours here.
Okay.
There is nothing
Now
like
every
that.
day you are able to log in.
Every day I'm able to log in, but sometimes it doesn't allow me to log into the Salesforce account.
There
Sometimes,
might be there might be some other reasons.
like
Okay.
a couple of days before, I was not able to log in for the whole day.
Yeah. See, either in worst case, if you are really giving the valid username and password,
Right.
the server might be down. Okay. It's very, very rare that Salesforce server will be down. Okay.
Okay.
So going forward, what you can do, just to get to know your server location. Okay, you will be knowing your
Yes, sir.
server location. Left side, if you search for company information, and you'll get to know this your Salesforce organization is in which Salesforce server. It is in, for me, it is in AP24. You can go to this trusted.salesforce.com and go to this
But this is after,
status.salesforce.com.
but this is when I buy the sandbox. I'm talking about the paid
Sorry.
developer edition. But this is you're talking about the sandboxes. If I
So
have the paid
the thing is,
Salesforce account.
this is also my developer edition, right? This is not the
Okay.
sandbox. This is also one of the developer organization created. Okay. This is the
Right,
location where this developer organization present. Okay. So you can
Okay.
see
Right.
If there is some service problem, you will see some red color. Okay, when you see something like that, that time really you might not be able to log in. Okay, because server is down. Okay, but in general, it will work. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah. Anyway, any other questions, anyone?
Thank you.
Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. You can check your email for the updated meeting link and you can join. Okay, thank you.